Hey Vet Rehabbers, how you doing?
Hi guys.
Thanks guys for joining us. We're gonna just have a little bit of a chat while we wait for people to come online. So Ine is actually in the same room as me, which is something that doesn't happen often because she's in Cape Town. So it's really awesome to have her here. And we've been brainstorming lots of things today, talking about the Vet Rehab Summit, which is going to be absolutely amazing. So for those of you guys that don't know about it, it's from the 15th, 16th, and 17th of November. We've got a day for each platform, so hydrotherapy, small animals, and equine. And you can find out more information on our website. I'll put the link in there for you guys if any of you are interested. But today, Ine and I are going to be chatting about priorities. And I think that this is something that a lot of us struggle with. And I think it's because a lot of the time we don't have time. So we are so under pressure with time. And so when we do have time, it's so important that we prioritize how we use that time. So one of the things that I shared this week with the Onlinepethealth team was an article that I read, and it was about Warren Buffett. And I wanted to start off by reading it to you guys. So I thought when I read this, I thought it was so important. And it's something that I think each and every one of you could really benefit from. So I'm going to read it to you guys. So just make sure I'm right. So Mike Flint is Warren Buffett's pilot, and he had been working for him for about 10 years. And this guy, Mike Flint, had flown for 4 different United States presidents. And, Buffett said to him the one day, the fact that you're still working for me tells me that I'm not doing my job. And you should be going out and looking at your goals and dreams and achieving all these things. And Flint asked Buffett then for his help, and Buffett told him to go through a 3-step process. So the first step was he asked him to write down 25 of his goals. And he just said, just take anything that comes to mind that would be success in your life, in your career. So this guy, his pilot, did exactly that. And then step 2 is he said, Buffett told him to look at those 25 and circle the 5 of the things that were the most important to him at that time. And he wanted to do more than anything else in the whole world. And this guy, Flint, he found this a lot harder because he said that all 25 are the things that he wanted to do. But Warren Buffett insisted that he pick only 5 of them. And he eventually did. He circled the 5. And he said to him, now, these are your absolute highest priority. This is what Warren Buffett said. And Steve agreed. And so then step 3 was, so now he had 2 lists. So this guy, Flint, had the list of the 5 things that he'd circled and the 20 things that were on the list which he hadn't circled. And Warren Buffett asked him now to get to work. How was he going to get to work on these top 5 things? And what was his plan? And Flint had said that he was going to focus on those 5 things that was going to be important to him. He will do all of these. He's going to start actually tonight with them. And he's going to think about all the people that could help him achieve those 5 things that he wrote down. And then Buffett asked him, well, what about the other 20 things? And so he said, well, the top 5 things are my primary focus, but the other 20 come in a close second. So they're also important, and I'll work on these intermittently as I see fit, as I'm getting through my top 5. And so Warren Buffett said to him, no, you've got this wrong, Mike. Everything you didn't circle just became your avoid at all costs list, no matter what. Those are the things that you give no attention to whatsoever. You only give attention to those 5 things. And I thought that was so important, because if I think about me when I was in practice, we have so many things that we want to do. So we want to make sure we're doing our social media. We want to do marketing. There's so many different things that we're thinking about that we have to do on top of our consulting and treating of our patients. And I think back to one stage in my life when I had my practice, I was just doing a little bit of everything, but I wasn't doing anything really well. And I don't know if you had the same thing, Ine.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And Megan, when you sent us that link, I immediately read it and sat my husband down and said, let's do this. Let's go through our 25 top goals or priorities and work as a team together to actually just achieve 5. Because I do feel that prioritizing is a big problem for me. And I've been challenged with that lately, in that I'm taking on too much onto my plate and burning out And it was definitely a problem when I was in practice as well, trying to balance traveling, treating patients, doing invoicing with having a family, and getting vet referrals and getting word of mouth referrals and somehow advertising and marketing and staying on top of social media. It was very difficult to decide what was most important. And then at the back of your mind, there's always, what's happening with my taxes, with my finances? Am I actually making money? Is it balancing out? So there's always a long list of things that need to happen that is vague in your head, and that you don't have direction for, that I didn't have direction for. So I thought that this was a really good way to say, let me just focus, let me get everything out of my head, focus on 5 things, get them done, and then move on to the next.
Yeah, and they're lists of 20. So those are your not to do lists. Those are the things that you say no to. And I think for me, this was the big thing, is that if you don't know what your goals and your priorities are, when an opportunity comes your way, or you think, oh, maybe I should do this, you got to keep going back to what your priorities are and what those 5 things are. And I even said to Nate, I think 5 is too many. I would maybe have 2 or 3. That I would say, and then you say no to those. And if you guys actually look at creating a certain number of things that are your top priority, and you get those done, you will slowly start to see that you actually are achieving things instead of doing a little bit here and there. And then I was actually having a conversation about, what we think that we should be doing in practice. So like marketing is a big one. Like if I look at all the surveys that you guys answer and you send out, like one of the biggest things is people just say they don't have time to do all the things that they have to do. And I think that sometimes we think like we have to do these things because we see everybody else doing them. And you don't have to do everything. You only have to do the things that are getting you a return on investment. So if you look at marketing, for example, okay, we were chatting now about social media and how time consuming it is, okay, putting all these posts. And I see lots of you guys, like I'm on LinkedIn quite a lot, and I see loads of posts on LinkedIn. And I wonder to myself, why are they doing that? Because who are they targeting? Because that is like a business to business. All your colleagues are there. So those are the people that are seeing your things. The pet owners in your area are not seeing those posts. And I wonder, what are they hoping to achieve? And maybe that's what they are hoping to achieve, is to get other people in our field to know about them. Maybe they're trying to target the vets. But what I'm saying is that you don't have to do everything that you see everybody else doing, because everyone might just be doing things for the sake of it because they think everyone else is doing it and that's what we should be doing. So rather focus your time on things that you're actually getting results on. So for example, we were chatting now about word of mouth marketing, and this is something that I am spending quite a lot of time. We're doing some training this month actually, and I think a few months ago we did some more on customer experiences around word of mouth. And this is where you guys are getting most of your clients. So that's where you should be focusing your attention instead of. And if I look at it, I'll think like people that I've chatted to now that I mentor in the veterinary rehab community, they're spending about 10 times more amounts of time on social media than they are on word of mouth. So trying to encourage word of mouth recommendations from their clients. But they're getting most of their new clients on word of mouth. So think about the things that you're doing, and if they actually are achieving what you want them to do. And if they aren't, then start focusing on the things that will actually get you guys success in your practice, or achieve the goals that you've just decided on. Right?
Yeah. So you said 2 things now that I think we should expand on. The first one is the social media part. So we all have a little bit of social media knowledge because you've done so much training on it, which has been amazing. And having a plan makes a difference. But even having a plan, even having a structure to your social media posts, it still takes a lot of time, much less than if you're just winging it, but it still takes a lot of time. So if we were to shift our focus and our time to word of mouth marketing, how would we actually do that? Maybe like, how do you get your clients to refer to you? How do you make your clients evangelists.
So that's all in the training this month for business basics. So I'm not going to go into that, but there are ways in which you can do that. So the online pet health members, we're going to be doing loads of training about word of mouth, because I think this is where you guys really need to focus your time. But I think we're digressing a little bit into the marketing, and you know me, once I get started on this kind of stuff, I can talk for hours. But I want to really focus on the priorities thing. So one thing I wanted to talk about was, if things, we have things that are urgent and we have things that are important, okay? And this is something that you guys need to think about. So urgent things are things, if you don't do them, there is a negative consequence in your practice, okay? So those things always have to be done first, okay? But there are lots of important things. So you always need to remember to do your urgent things before you do important things. So things like phoning clients. And often some of these urgent things are things that are difficult for us to do, or we find uncomfortable to do. And they're often the things that we put off.
Yeah.
And, we procrastinate in doing certain things. I think, we'll do that later on, And I don't know if you're someone who procrastinates. I used to be a procrastinator. I used to be really bad at procrastinating, but I've actually taught myself now not to. And I've sort of make myself even just do a little bit. And then I was chatting earlier about when you have a project or something that you have to do. So let's say, for example, you need to do your tax. And this is a really good example. It's something that we always put off. I used to do it last minute always, like literally to the hour. My accountant would be like, and I'm saying, I'm coming now, I'm just filling in the spreadsheet or whatever. And the thing is, it's because it's so overwhelming. There's so much we have to do. So I want you guys to really think about things in your practice that you've been putting off now, things that you have been saying, I'm going to do that, I must do that, and you never get to do them. Instead of thinking, I'm going to do that as the big project, get that project, whatever it is, and then you need to divide it into small, break it down into little pieces, okay? And so, for example, within the tax, the one thing would be just print out the bank statements.
Mm-hmm.
Divide all the slips into different months. Mm-hmm. So break all that down. And then instead of saying, I'm going to do my tax, you're going to say, like, I'm just going to print the bank statements. Just take one little step. And as soon as you do one thing and another thing, and you break it down into manageable bite-sized things, you'll start to see that you'll start to achieve things. And then you'll get the ball rolling, and you'll say, well, I'm in it now, like I'm just about there, I'm going to finish this.
Yeah.
Okay? Do you find that helps you?
Yeah, and procrastination is hard because you can sit and do nothing, which I think many of us don't have time for. Or you can waste your time doing things that are not important. So that's what I really like about this not to-do list of Warren Buffett's, because it makes you go, no, that's actually not on my list of things that need to happen right now. That's not a goal that I need to be working towards. I need to be focusing on whatever the case may be. So you could be procrastinating by putting social media posts out when you actually need to be writing vet reports. So that there are different forms of procrastination, and just because you're doing something that is on your list of things that need to happen, you might still be procrastinating by not focusing on what actually has to happen today, or what is highest on your priority list. And it could be something that's big and that's time consuming, like doing your taxes, or daunting. Because for me, if I think about trying to figure out my finances and doing my taxes, I want to run and hide under a rock because it's just, and I know that I can do it. I can do maths. I can look at my expenses and my income, and I can read some blogs and see how it's all done. But I really, really don't want to.
Yeah, I think that is the advice about sometimes when you're actually doing something else, when you're procrastinating, because, we think we're doing something, and this actually comes down to productivity. Mm-hmm. So like you can be very, very busy all day, and at the end of the day, you think like, what have I actually achieved? And that's why when you have actually proper goals, you're actually focusing and you start to achieve things. You start to really realize that you are achieving something. And procrastinating, I think also sometimes there's this fear of, for example, finances is overwhelming. So like when you're procrastinating to do something, it's because you don't really know how to do it exactly, or you fear of the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen if you do it. And I think a lot of the time, you know, I see all these rehab therapists that I mentor a lot of them in practice, and I wonder whether there is this fear of failure. So like, it's actually better just to go on and don't try and grow my practice, although I do want to, but I just keep on treating patients and doing the thing that I'm really comfortable with. And that's one of the big problems, I think, is because what's comfortable for us is the treatments, and that's fine, but somebody has to be doing all the other things, you know, that you procrastinating, you know.
Yeah, and I think, Megan, you've made a good point in a lot of your in your blogs and things about you don't have to do everything yourself. So delegating is not a bad idea. And for me, that was paying someone else to deal with my finances, because it was just mentally too much of a stress for me. It was easier for me to spend money and save time and save stress in that regard. So that, and what you said now made me think of your 3 musts, your list of 3 musts, which Megan is super religious about. She's got like pulling out all her lists now. And I'm a little bit worse at.
So guys, this is a form. This is actually a free training that I offer the whole vet rehab community. It's on time maximization. I think there's a lot of info that we're chatting about here that we actually go into more detail about. So that's why I say I like 2 or 3 goals. So what I do every day is I have this list, and you guys can download it. It's for free. It's basically a list of your week, and the day before, so like on a Friday, I'll usually do Monday's one, and sometimes I actually do the whole week if I've got loads of things. But what you do is you write down the 3 things that you have to achieve that next day, okay? And these are 3 things that would be in those top 5 goals, basically. These are things that are going to change your practice. There are things that you really need to have to do. They're also sometimes urgent things, but there are things that you've maybe been putting off, and I'll break it down. So sometimes within a week, by the time I get to Friday, I've achieved a project or a goal, and I've broken it down within those 3 musts. So you have 3 musts, and then out of those 3, you need to choose one thing that you have to do, all right? There's a 1 must. So every day there's something, and that means that at the end of the day, you've achieved something, okay? Something big, all right? So you don't just go through your day just bumbling along, and you think to yourself, well, what have I done today? And I know you guys do amazing things, treating your patients and stuff. So there's this another side of things that you're doing. But remember, you also have that other admin side that you have to do. And I think also, when I think about the priorities, I think it depends on how you are in practice. So are you managing a whole team? Is it just you? Do you work for someone else? Everybody's priorities would be different. But we'll put the link for that time maximization training, and you guys can have a look at this. So what I do is I always do my 1 must, and do that first, and then I try and get through the 3. And it's amazing how it's changed my productivity. And I get through my goals so much quicker.
Yeah, I think that's super valuable. I want to go a little bit back again to Warren Buffett's list, right? So I said that my husband and I literally sat down and did it together immediately. So obviously there's a little bit more of a personal aspect to the goals that we set, because I was doing it with my husband as a family, because that is where I have been struggling to prioritize my time, which has been impacting my work. So he kept coming back to what is a long-term goal and a short-term goal. And I think that that makes it a little bit more challenging, because obviously your long-term goals are not going to go directly onto your list of the 5 things that you're focusing on, your 5 priorities, essentially. And there are some things that you can't leave to the last minute. So what I'm thinking about is, I really want to go to an IAVRPT conference, hopefully next year, to Cambridge. But I can't just go. I have to plan it. I have to financially plan for it, and I have to have started doing that yesterday. So that needs to be somewhere in my mind that I'm putting money aside all the time, and that means it can't go onto a list that I don't think about or don't touch. So how would you deal with that, Megan?
Yeah, so if I think about our goals, I feel like you have your long-term goals and your short-term goals. And your long-term goals are more sort of your direction. And I talk about this a lot in my training, is that it's so important to know where you want to be in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. So if you guys don't have an idea where you're going, you don't know what decisions to make in order to get there. Okay, so like, say for example, when I started my practice, I remember I was just in practice. I didn't have an idea. I had dreams, but they were very vague. I didn't actually have an idea. And until I decided, right, I want to have a practice, I want to have this many therapists in my practice, then I started to be able to make decisions along the way. And if you don't have this direction, this long-term goal, then those short-term goals, you can't actually decide what they're going to be. And in my mind, when you have a long-term goal, then that goal is usually something that's quite big. And in order to get there, you need a plan. And that plan then breaks down into short-term goals. And each short-term goal takes you one step further to achieving that long-term goal. So yes, you have those ones in the back of your mind. And the long-term goal will influence all the short-term things that you're doing. So that's what I think. But this direction, guys, is so important because, for example, okay, if you decide this is kind of practice you want an underwater treadmill, you want to have this many people working for you, it's going to give you the freedom then to be able to have the lifestyle that you want, because that's all we want, okay? So we want to be able to have a balance in our work and in our personal life. And I see from the surveys that I get back from you guys, this is something that we are all struggling with. Vet rehabbers are struggling to get this balance. And I think it's mainly because of the type of people we are. We struggle to say no. And I think we struggle to say no because we don't have our priorities right, okay? So we have to have boundaries and our priorities to decide what we're going to do. And it's so hard. Listen, I am like the first one to say that I struggle to say no, but I can tell you now that I'm so much better at it. So you guys all know that obviously years ago I had my own practice. I used to do a lot of lecturing for pet owners, for online conferences. And this year, I was saying to Renee that I've had multiple people emailing me saying, please, just begging me, please won't you lecture for this online conference? We really, really want somebody to talk about arthritis or this and that. And normally I would say yes. And the last few years I've been doing it still, okay? But I made a decision at the beginning of the year, all right? One of my goals was to focus on the veterinary rehabilitation community. That was my focus. And I said to the Online Pet Health team, we had like Online Pet Health Academy. We were doing some lectures and stuff for pet owners. We stopped the Online Pet Health Academy, and that's all we are doing. And every single time I get an email, I said, I'm sorry, I've decided this year to focus on the vet rehab community, and I've stuck to it, and it's been so great for me to be able to actually do that. And so I know now when I must say no, and that's where you guys have to get to a point where you know where you're going, what your goal is, and then you know when you need to say no, and you know when everything else is a distraction. Because those kind of things are fun to do. I love doing them because I love helping pet owners. I really do, because that's what we do, So, but it's a distraction. Because if I have to sit now and start doing that, my focus is not actually where it should be for my goal.
And having a vision of where you want to be and who you want to be and how you want to be that person is so important. And Megan likes to focus on growth and getting bigger and bigger and bigger and greater because that's the kind of person that she is. But for many of us, we love the day-to-day, treating our patients, going into practice, seeing our however many dogs or however many horses, working with our clients. We love doing the exercises. We love that. And then growth is not where we want to go, and then you can't make decisions or take opportunities that are going to grow your practice to such a point where you're going to be running around doing admin all the time because you never have time to treat patients anymore, because the 7 therapists that you've employed are already doing that and someone else needs to be running them. So having that in mind and realizing that this is what I want, this is where I want to be in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, I want to still be this person, then you can take opportunities and make decisions according to that goal. Buffett speaks about that and says that, you know, he has achieved success not because he's taken many opportunities, but because he's taken a few good ones and focused on a few small good opportunities. So really focusing on achieving 1 or 2 things is much more valuable than spreading ourselves thin and taking every opportunity and every chance that comes our way. That just distracts us from our goal, from who we are.
Yeah, and you must remember that every time you guys say no, you create an opportunity to say yes to something else that is better aligned with your goals. That's what you got to remember. So every time an opportunity comes your way, think to yourself, is this opportunity aligned with my current goals? And, you know, and I wanted to chat about what you said about practice. So yes, I'm the kind of person that I want to have a big practice. You know, I want to grow. You know, that's what I want. But you know, that's not what everyone has to have. Okay. So if you want that, great. But maybe you don't. Maybe you're content with just having a very small practice and 1 staff member or just yourself. And that's okay. But what you got to know is that's what you want. And I think one of the things, and I read this somewhere and I thought it was so great, is that we all know what we don't want, but a lot of us don't know actually what we want. Okay. So when you ask somebody, well, what do you want? And I had this with a friend of mine. So we were talking about guys actually. And I said to her, I was like, well, like, what do you want in a guy? And she was like, well, I don't know. I know what I don't want. I don't want and she went off, you know. And I thought to myself, that's exactly it. We know what we don't want, but we often don't actually know what we want. And I think sometimes we don't just sit down and actually think about it, okay? And the other thing is it's okay to change, okay? You just need the direction. You need to know where you're going, right? But you can change direction. You can say, I want to be a one-man band only. And then 3 years later, you can say, actually, now I want to expand. That's fine. Because then you'll be changing direction. You'll be making decisions to get yourself into your new direction that you're going. So just thinking about where you're going and using and the decisions that you make to get you in the right direction to where you're going. I actually recall a podcast in one of my Behind the Rehab podcasts, and I remember asking one of the, I think it was a hydrotherapist, and she doesn't actually do any advertising. And I asked her, well, why? Like, that to me is so strange. Like, why wouldn't you promote yourself? Because I don't need to. Like, I'm as busy as I want to be, and I'm content with my practice. I don't need any more new clients. I get enough referrals and it's fine, you know. And there was another company, I think it was also a hydrotherapy pool company in the UK. I also asked them, like, don't you want to advertise? They were like, no, we don't need to. We're quite happy with the way we are. I'd be like, but how can you be? Don't you want to get bigger? And so that's my thoughts. But not everyone has to be that way. I mean, you might just be content with what you got. So maybe you where you are actually want to be. Maybe that's why. Huh?
Yeah.
Thanks. I see we've got a comment. We don't know who it's from because of Facebook's privacy laws, but somebody said this is all great advice. I definitely struggle with the word no. So thanks so much for the comments. Those of you that are listening, if you guys have got anything to share, this is a conversation that Anae and I are having, and we just actually thought it was so important to chat about it because it's not something that we often get to talk to people about unless you're going to like a life coach or something. But it is something so important that you guys can think about.
So on the saying no to people, I think it helps when there's a backup plan, right? So like the example that you've given now, Megan, is that you're asked to lecture quite often, right? And now you're needing to say no because it's a distraction and it's going to take your time and your energy away from what you need to focus on. For us in practice, it might be I've recently had the situation where I was asked to go out to see a horse that's 300 kilometers away from me, and it's one horse. And I don't have the time to travel there to see one horse. It just isn't an option. So if I have a backup plan, I have a few therapists that I can refer them to. It makes it easier for me to say, actually, I can't help you. I wish I could, but these people might be able to. That helps. So the opportunities that I'm saying opportunities, because it can be an opportunity to go and see that horse, and I can see it that way. But opportunities that come our way that are going to be distractions, and wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you'll be getting one specific kind of request that you're going to need to say no to. Come up with a backup plan for that so that you can give people another option. Like Megan can refer them to another therapist who is passionate about arthritis and who loves to lecture. They are out there. So that means she's not just closing a door for them, she's giving them another option. And I think that makes it easier to say no. For me, that makes it easier to say no.
Yeah, well, if I think about it, I always do generally come up with some other plans. Yeah. I tell you, one of the things I struggled in practice. So when I was in practice, we didn't have a lot of therapists around. So it was in the early days, and there were two of us vets doing acupuncture and rehabilitation in Cape Town. So Monique crouched, and she was like about 50 minutes drive away from me. And I remember when Monique and I went away, we could never go away together. So like she would go away and then I would go away. It had to be different times. And we would have clients that would drive. My clients would drive to go see her if they had to be seen in that time, okay? And, I remember just not being able, I actually completely lost my train of thought. What are we talking about?
Saying no and giving them an alternative plan.
Oh, yes, sorry. So I'm getting myself completely carried away here. And I remember, people phoning and saying, my dog is screaming in pain, or my dog is paralyzed and the vet wants to put it down. And I would have like my whole consult would be chock-a-block. I'd be like booked up, like I had a 3-week waiting list. And then my little girl who was at playgroup and I had to go fetch her. And I'd be like, okay, like, just come down, and I just couldn't say no because I didn't have an alternative. So I think you're so right. Like it was so difficult for me. I can remember at times I just say, well, come down and I'll just try and see where I can squeeze you in. And I remember just not having lunch breaks. It was hectic. And I could not say no because how can I? So I'm a vet.
No, how can you leave the dog in pain? You cannot. You can't.
Their vet has said they're going to put the dog down. The dog is screaming in pain, and I know what I can do. I can manage that pain, And so So guys, I understand how tricky it is to say no, and not in every situation it's easy to say no. Okay.
And I'm just thinking now about that kind of situation where you have a patient like that, you tell them to come down and you make a plan. So you see them little bit, you squeeze them in, maybe you have 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and you don't do a proper job, right? They're not getting the experience of actually your practice and who you are and what you want to achieve, because they're getting secondhand scraps of what you can do. And for some, I think you might create a client that's very appreciative of what happened, but for others, you won't. And you'll end up with someone that just thinks that, that's the experience that they get from you because you're running off your feet all the time. You don't have time to look at anyone properly or to do anything properly. You're not calm and relaxed. It affects everything when you're running around and you're not calm. Yeah. We can't treat our patients if we're not calm and relaxed. Then they cannot be calm and relaxed, and then you create a bad experience for someone, and that's bad for your practice. That's not going to help you get word of mouth referrals.
And also, when you are squeezing in clients like that, you're generally putting out somebody else.
Yes.
So somebody else, you're late for somebody else, or there's pressure or something. So obviously in an ideal world, I would have had another therapist. That's what I needed. But at that time, there weren't enough people. And since then, we've got, people qualifying from Equilibrium, we've got veterinary physios, we've got CCRPs, we've got acupuncture courses here. So now we've got lots of people in South Africa, but at that time, we didn't,
Yeah, so basically you're not just giving one patient and client a bad experience, you're giving multiple a bad experience.
And that comes to boundaries. I think we all struggle with boundaries. So boundaries with our patients and boundaries with our clients. But I think that's probably another complete Facebook Live. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this. Please, guys, if you're listening to this as a recording, or those of you guys that are online now, we'd love to hear your comments, just things that you're struggling with. And the more you guys can tell us, the more that we can help you. So when we hear your comments, and thanks to everyone who's filled in our survey. If you haven't yet, I'll put a link in there. Please, guys, fill it out. The information that we get really helps us to create content to help all of you guys. If you have an awesome day.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.